I've shown these two pistols before. This, of course, is the Glock 33, chambered in 357 SIG. I had the Lone Wolf 40 Smith & Wesson barrel in here before, but this is the actual 357 SIG barrel that comes stock from Glock. And here we've got the Glock 23. Great pistol. This is the compact version. Glock 23, Glock 19 are compact Glocks in their terminology, and this would be a subcompact Glock. This would be equivalent to a Glock 27 in 40 Smith & Wesson, in fact identical except for the barrel, or a Glock 26, which is a 9mm. Some slight differences. Now we're going to move up to the biggest Glock they make. This is a Glock 20. Dimensionally identical to a Glock 21, which is chambered in 45 ACP. The Glock 20, this is not the small frame version, this is the full-size, full-frame version. Glock 20 is chambered in 10mm. You may start to see a trend here with my choice of firearms. I tend to like pistols that are chambered in the 40 caliber variants. This in the middle, of course, is the 40 Smith & Wesson. 40 caliber, which means the diameter of the bullet is 4/10 of an inch wide or across. And here is the 357 SIG round. It is the same brass as the 40 Smith & Wesson, neck down, to receive a 9mm bullet. This is going to have higher velocity, although less mass coming down the barrel. And now the granddaddy of all 40 caliber bullets, at least when it comes to semi-autos, is the mighty 10mm. If I cover the top of these two rounds, you'd be hard pressed to figure out which one's which. Of course, if you see the primer, you'll see that the 40 Smith & Wesson primer uses a small primer. It's in a small primer pocket, and then the 10mm uses a large primer, just like a 45 ACP does. It is most of the time same types of bullets that get loaded into the brass, anywhere from 135 grain in 10mm goes all the way up to 230 grain hard cast lead bullets. In 40 Smith & Wesson, the most popular bullets are 165 grain and 180 grain. This is a 180 grain bullet. And here's some size comparisons of the three. For no other reason except the fact that I reload 40 Smith & Wesson, and the same dies that I use for the 40 Smith & Wesson I can also use to reload my 10mm, because otherwise the 10mm round will be much too expensive to shoot on a regular basis. You've seen these two firearms already, so I'll put these aside. I want to focus on the Glock 20. Just a brief overview to show you what I've done with mine. Nothing real special, just a few modifications to make this easy for me to use. This is pretty much stock except for the fact that I wrap some silicone wrap around the handle. Makes it a little grippier. I like it better than skateboard tape. I like it better than slip-on grips, because the 10 millimeter, the Glock 20 has a very thick grip, and these Gen 3 Glocks, they kind of have a slippery texture to the grip. So you need something, and you've probably heard this from a lot of people. You know, Hitcock 45 is a well-known YouTuber that loves the Glocks. Favorite firearm that he always talks about is the Glock 23, and he also likes the Glock 27, which is just like this, and he also has the Glock 20 as well as the Glock 29, which is a small version of this. But for me, instead of skateboard tapes, grip tapes, things like that, this works for me. This gives me just the right amount of grip. And I don't conceal carry this, or I don't care about this grabbing on my shirt. This is going to be a outside the waistband carry holster type firearm. And I've got my Streamlight TLR1 attached to it. Excellent light, very bright. You have the momentary on, and then you have the constant on. This firearm is much thicker than your standard Glock. A good amount thicker. The Glock 23 and the Glock 20 or the Glock 33 and variants of its kind have that same thickness, but this is an entirely different design altogether. Well, it's the same design, but entirely different dimensions altogether. This and the Glock 21 shares a lot of attributes, although you cannot just swap the barrel to shoot 45 ACP. There are enough differences where you have to swap the entire upper. Extractors, ejectors, a lot of different ways that these things are milled. You have to swap out the entire upper to fire 45 ACP. The lower is the same. This part of the firearm is the same as a Glock 21. If I had a Glock 21 upper, I'd be able to put that on. Just like so. And then if I had a Glock 21 magazine, I'd be able to put that in, and I'll be able to shoot 45 ACP. But as it stands right now, this firearm is only going to shoot 10 millimeter. However, you can get a conversion barrel for the Glock 20 that will let you fire 40 Smith & Wesson cartridges, just like this, as compared to 10 millimeter. All it is a little bit shorter. So as a matter of fact, you'll be able to use the same magazine. It will just sit further to the back. The feed lips are going to work perfectly for it because it's exactly the same diameter. The brass the same diameter. You just got to be a little bit more concerned with how far back you seat the bullet or the ammunition, because it's got to feed correctly. If you had a conversion barrel, you'd be able to put a conversion barrel in here to shoot 40 Smith & Wesson, which is a great practice round for the 10 millimeter. The other thing you can do, and if you have the time, if you have the know-how, you can load a 40 Smith & Wesson cartridge with higher pressure to shoot from a 10 millimeter gun like this, because it has to be, the gun has to be capable of firing a 10 millimeter round. What people would do is they would load the overall length closer to a 10 millimeter round than a 40 Smith & Wesson round, which means the bullet in a 40 Smith & Wesson round that you will fire out of a Glock 20 with a conversion barrel was seat further out from the cartridge. That's going to give you more room to put more powder inside. Meanwhile, the 40 Smith & Wesson brass is much more prevalent and will be an overall cheaper round to reload than to have to find the bigger and taller 10mm brass. Now, if you're going to try to do that, you're doing it at your own risk. Anytime when you modify a cartridge out of spec, out of the recommended spec from the manufacturer of the powder, of the primer, of any of your reloading equipment, you're doing it at your own risk. So be careful if you're going to do that. But it has been done, and a lot of people do it with a lot of success, which will make a great practice round to practice with your 10mm pistol. So here it is. I want to show you just real quick my Glock 20. Expect to see more of this pistol in the future. Thanks for watching.